T-Soft shoots it, deflected right in. Pietrangelo save rebound. Stastny stopped by Pietrangelo. I don't believe that save. Neither does Peter Stastny. He can't believe the save that Pietrangelo just made on him as Frankie sparkly. Now that maneuver there to stop and rob Peter Stastny. He should get 5 to 10 for that.
Hello and welcome to episode 34 of Tendy Talk, presented by the BLPA Podcast Network. This week I catch up with Brenner of the Goalie Guru. It's a neat little device that adheres to the paddle of your goalie stick to give you more control. Listen as we talk about how Corey got into the game of hockey, how the Goalie Guru evolved from a rock taped to his stick to what it is today. Be sure to listen to the end of the episode to get a discount code for 20% off your own Goalie Guru. Without further ado, let's get to the conversation. Well, Corey, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join the podcast, talk some goaltending, and wherever else the conversation takes us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Joe.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've chatted and been on the ice together.
Absolutely too long. I feel like one of the many things that I missed during the pandemic, just getting out and skating every once in a while, kind of shaking off the rust figuratively and literally off my blades. I'm sure they're sitting in my poor basement right now.
Yeah, I've had a few skates, but with my team opting out of the winter season, not as much as I would like. And I've been getting texts lately, but my son's baseball started up and a couple other things going on where it's like, I got to, because it wasn't on the calendar a week or so ago, I got to say no.
I'm trying to line up calendar times too. I feel like with just everything going on with, my brothers or family or my wife or this or that, it seems like half the people I know are bored out of their mind and the other half is just blown away by who's bored right now. And just everything is sort of piling on itself.
Yeah. Well, we're in the middle of trying to decide if we move or do renovations to the house or whatnot. So there's a lot of work going on in our house. So if I'm not working, I'm working on the house.
Yep. The to-do list.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got it on my phone, and thank goodness I no longer have to scroll on that list. It's all on one screen.
That's good. You must have made a good dent on it then.
Yes. And it's the dent of like the big stuff. So now it's just, some of the smaller stuff. And one of them on there is a fun task of burning all of the burnables back in the fire pit. So
okay,
I think Saturday might be a really nice day for that.
All right, yeah, bring the s'mores and hang out outside.
Exactly. Yeah,
be worse for sure.
Talking like 80 degrees on Saturday. I'm down for that. Bring the cooler out. We're good to go.
And I feel like I had those were high on my list last summer to do like the raised flower beds and some of the crafty outdoors things. And now it's just like, all right, build more of my desk. Like, where am I spending the time? What do I need to be comfortable doing?
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, before we go down that rabbit hole, let's get into it. The first question I ask a lot of my guests is, how did you get started in hockey? Not just goaltending, but hockey in general.
Definitely just skating as a little kid. I feel like I started when I was 2 or 3, just wobbling around on blades on a frozen pond type of thing. Mm-hmm. And this was sort of before we had the seals you hold on to with the, things underneath them. We just had chairs were sort of our seals of the day, and we'd walk around and hobble and eventually fall and kind of get back up. I feel like just being able to keep stumbling through until it clicks was always really valuable, and definitely being able to, skate around on anything frozen with my parents was nice too.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when my kids were tiny, we had a big old pond behind the house, and the neighbor, he had a 4-wheeler with a plow, and he would plow almost a full NHL sized rink on that pond.
Man.
And he would bring his ice auger out with a pump and recirculate and flood it. And he always did this before he shoveled his own driveway, which I thought was awesome. But
a good neighbor.
We did the same thing. We had the kids' little Fisher-Price chairs from their table set. That's what they held on to, is that they learned to skate. And now here they are, teenagers, and we have our own backyard rink this year, and they're just skating around like, it's second nature for them, which is awesome.
And that was so clutch this year too, to build all those rinks. I saw even like the parks kept some of them going and people just put them up locally. It was really cool. I feel like something to just any way to bring the community together.
I saw a lot more backyard rinks this year than I've ever seen before. Usually in our neighborhood, there's 2 or 3. This year, there were 10.
Yeah.
So we'll see next winter how many come back.
And seeing a huge influx of that hockey at home, I've seen, companies really reach out to communities and kids and stuff. I saw some cool things with Sniper's Edge building rinks in basements for, kids who couldn't get out there, just to put the sheets of synthetic ice in your basement or living room and stuff. It was cool to see some of the videos of people who, didn't have access to hop out to a rink or their rink closed. And they said, you know what, I'm just going to build one at home and kind of do it myself.
Yeah. It's funny you said, because my neighbor typically puts the backyard rink up, and he wasn't going to do it this year because both of his kids are in travel hockey. And he's like, they're on the ice 6 to 7 nights a week. They never use it. Do you want it for your yard? I was like, well, I don't want it. Let's just put it up in my yard. He's like, all right, fair enough. Well, then the rinks get shut down, and his kids were out there more this year than they probably have been the past 4 or 5 years combined, which was great. It was fun to see them. In fact, the one night I looked out there, and the neighbor kid and 2 of his buddies were out there, and they were running drills on the backyard rink. I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. I like that you guys aren't just shooting around. You're trying to work on your skills.
Right.
Yeah.
Setting up odd man rushes and penalty kills in there. I think that's how you've missed pracky, when like you're out there just setting it up and running sprints.
Skating Herbies on your own.
Again. Oh, me. All right. Yeah. I'm again too. I
don't want to, coach. Again. That was like the meme I saw. Coach made me skate laps when I got to practice because I was late. My dad's the coach. He drove me.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that one on some level at some point in our playing days. So like most Minnesotans, you start skating young on the closest frozen patch of ice you can find. When did you fall in love with the position of goaltending, and what was it about it that you were just like, yep, this is where I belong?
I feel like one of those things that is probably too common a story, where people just have it assigned to them as like an atom or a mini mite, right? And so we sort of had that full goalie rotation coming through, and recognized that as it came to me, I was like, I might do that again. Like, is there any way I could get back in the rotation? And the coach was like, yes, please get back in the rotation. Like, we would love to have you back in there. And it sort of became from something that was just sort of mandatory to something that I really kind of took to and enjoyed. And I think I saw that story a lot too when I was coaching out in DC. We had sort of a get to try goalie program where each of the mites would cycle through, and whatever kid it was their week. We would set them up with the loaner gear, and some of the kids were just like, oh, this is so heavy. I can't skate. I'm falling. And some kids' eyes just lit up as soon as they put the pads on, as soon as they put the gear on. And you could kind of tell, like, all right, this might be for you.
Yeah, I remember the cartoon in the old From the Crease goalie manuals where the doctor is holding up a little baby in goalie equipment, and he says, congratulations, you've hatched a goalie. And it's like, yeah, we kind of are, you're just born. There is no, oh, I fell into it. We're born that way.
I think Kaskisuo did a really good announcement when he had his first, just like these tiny little goalie pads right next to it. And you're like, man, that's just so good. The heart and soul, I feel like, just keeps sort of getting passed down.
Yep. Yeah, I like that companies like Brian's and Vaughn and whatnot, and CCM, when they're big name goalies find out they're going to have a baby, they send a pair out. And I even remember Shannon Sabat. I always butcher her last name, Sabatos, the Canadian female goalie. When she was having a baby, Warrior sent her a pair, as well. So it's not just the NHL goalies; it's all the big name goalies, which is fun to see.
CCM's been really taking a look at their goalie stuff too with their all out campaigns. I feel like just bringing a lot of stuff together. It feels like a great time for one big collaborative goalie campaign.
Yeah, their latest video that they put out was just awesome. Where it was kind of a mix of kids, just I'll say beer leaguers, but I know that they weren't supposed to be beer leaguers, but they looked like me, so therefore they're beer leaguers. That was awesome. Then I don't know if you saw the video that dropped this week on social media. Jordy Oberg from the Ultimate Fan Cave did an awesome video of the new CCM line. I think it was the Flex 5 line. He did a pretty sweet video where it's like, oh man, makes
Really
me
cool.
just want to go out and buy a pair, even though I haven't even tried them on.
Well, I'm sure seeing what you were wearing last time that you're probably due for a new pair right around now anyway.
Yeah, I've been saving up and I've begun discussions with a rep. I'll leave it at that.
There you go. Okay. No
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Exactly, because I'm pretty sure when the order goes through, it'll make waves if I get the design I want.
Nice. Well, I hope it goes well.
Yeah. So you start playing goalie at a young age. How far did you make it? Did you wind up playing high school hockey? Did you go beyond high school? What was your hockey journey like?
Yeah. So I went through high school and then up into college, and I played Division III, and it sort of got to that point where, we had guys who were really doing this as a full-time career. There were guys who wanted to go and play pro or semi-pro or, out in the EU somewhere. And it sort of got to that point where I realized that this could either be a playing life or I could pursue a master's and a marketing career and coaching. And there was sort of got to the point where it was do these 10 things or be a hockey player. And I remember this almost breakup with hockey. My senior year, it honestly felt like a split type of thing where I felt like losing something that I loved, and sort of went through a bit of the grieving process, losing it and sort of redefining who I would be without this part in my life. And of course, I came back to hockey as one might rebound on any serious relationship from time to time. But yeah, it was a tough transition. And I think I was really happy to be able to chase some of the other parts of my life that, of course, eventually led me to coaching and entrepreneurship and to gain the skills I needed to launch and found the Goalie Guru. But certainly to leave that playing part of it was a big decision.
It's funny you say that, because a lot of the goalies I talk to who are our age that just they have this passion for the sport like a kid. We've all gone through the same thing. I think the way you put it, almost that breakup of sorts, where the old saying is, if you love it, let it go, and if it comes back, it was meant to be. That's kind of how hockey has been for a lot of us. We didn't totally ignore it, but we maybe went a few years without playing or whatnot, and all of a sudden it's like, no, this is what I need. This is what the soul needs. And I think you appreciate it a little bit more when you do take that break and you come back re-energized. So you mentioned playing college hockey. Where did you play?
So I played at Northland College.
Okay.
It's out in Ashland, Wisconsin.
Yep.
Definitely a small school, but big heart. And I think that really gave some awesome opportunities to bond really well with the people and the players and the friends I made out there.
Yeah, having played in the MIAC, those Minnesota and Wisconsin Division III schools, there's some really good hockey that I think people are just unaware of. And if they could see those games, they'd be impressed with the skill on the ice for those games. Even when I played, now I think to play Division III, you almost have to come from the junior ranks. But when I played, there were a lot of us that came straight from high school because we knew we weren't going to go pro. So it was, let's get this education thing out of the way and get ready to be adults here.
Fair enough.
But still play some hockey. And it was just incredible, the speed and the skill that first practice I remember. And some of the kids could have gone Division I. They could have kept going, but it's kind of like the idea of, do you want to be the fourth line player on a Division I team, or do you want to be a top line player on a Division III team?
Sure.
So some of the kids I knew that was their thought process there. Some of the kids I skated with, won Minnesota high school hockey tournaments, and then they're on the ice with me. I'm going, what did I, who did I fool here to be skating with these guys?
That's awesome, though. I think so much of it is just like that, embracing it and stepping into those tough positions and stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. So along the way, obviously there was something with your stick you noticed you weren't liking. At what point did you start thinking, there's got to be a better way to hold this stick? And did you tinker with cutting a trigger grip into your stick? Did you tinker with, different taping options along the paddle? I mean, you see some of them. I think Holtby has that giant piece of tape at the bottom. Were you doing those kinds of things with your stick back then?
Yeah, different prototypes. I feel like as I was playing, just looking at what worked, what didn't, but it's sort of something that everyone went through to some degree where they're like, there has to be a better way.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe I just took it the degree further where it was like, how can I recreate this? How can I, build a better way, not just for me, but as I am eventually, breaking sticks, changing, moving things on. So it started with, taping a little rock onto the paddle, and then tried like the Dremels and the triggers and everything like that. And it seemed like what I ultimately wanted was something that you could have the comfort there, right, to put your finger into that groove, but also the piece itself gives you that extra face to turn into, to press into, which is even a little more powerful and impactful than just, putting your finger into a hole. Mm-hmm. It allows you to actually get an extra paddle face, sort of the difference between really squeezing a doorknob and getting an extra door handle. You get that torque to send it into the corner. But it definitely took me a couple different prototypes and trying all sorts of things from, tape to rocks to clay. And eventually, when I was out in Southern California, I was able to connect with some of the 3D prototyping and rendering folks who work with League of Legends. If you've heard of like the esport and a lot of the stuff they do, it was really fantastic. I feel like to take this concept that I sort of had in my head and had built a couple different iterations of, to really put it into motion and see that it was something that I could recreate and could potentially market and share with some of the kids I was coaching at that time in a larger audience.
So is this an idea that was sparked, back while playing college hockey or even earlier, or was this something you had been thinking about, once your playing days, what I consider the competitive playing days ended, and it was just kind of like, there's something I could do better here?
I think it was something that I really started implementing later on in my career, but had always sort of had in the back of my mind. And I think in terms of just putting things together, it's hard to say an exact year, right? And I think that as I'm looking at when it sort of came into fruition, it's like anything, right? You don't just up and create the car. You got to start somewhere and build little things piece by piece. And that was sort of how it went for me, looking at a couple different iterations. And even now the V2 Pro with the treads it has is kind of different than the original flat version.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that maybe the original that you tried first, I think, was the flat full one. And so now with the treads, it gives some better adhesion. And I think, it's continuing to move forward.
Yeah, I remember I was playing at the inaugural SotaStick Hockey Classic, and we had just played Team Arsenal, and Andy Oman, who's going to be a guest in a few weeks, he handed me one saying, "Here you go." And I was like, what's this? And, I was like, oh, this looks really cool. Because at the time I was considering cutting into my stick and creating a trigger grip, because I have the issue of going down and almost getting blood blisters because I pinched that paddle, right on my finger between the paddle and the ice. I'm like, there's a better way, because I almost wrapped that finger around without the trigger grip. And I was like, I don't know if I want to cut into my stick. Knowing me, I'll probably do it wrong. And then, okay, if I get it right on this stick, who's to say the next one I'm not going to be able to replicate that? So that's what I like about this product is, from stick to stick, you can, easily put it in the exact same spot. But at the same time, if you're cheap like me, you could take it off of the old stick. I don't recommend it. It's cheap enough. Just buy a new one.
Sure, that's definitely my recommendation.
Yeah, exactly. But I love that it's that versatile. But at the same time, I might put it in a slightly different spot or angle than you will. So it's a little more customizable too because of that, which is really cool.
And that was definitely something I picked up from my kids when I was a goalie coach for years after I finished skating myself, was just seeing how people actually used it, trying out different prototypes, seeing what the sort of orientation might be. And so now when the directions come with the package, it sort of has these couple different flips where you might have it one way, you might have it different. Obviously depends if you're righty, if you're lefty, if you're, big, short, small, anything like that. It's sort of a one size fits all based on how you flip it.
Yeah, and it's going to fit a senior stick as well as it's going to fit a youth stick too, which is nice. The one thing I don't know why I did it, but before I attach it to my stick, I had my hand on there. I was like, I think I like it here, but something in my head just said, put your blocker on and then see if you like it there. And I'm glad I did, because I wound up moving it just a little bit than where I thought I wanted it, because I wasn't taking into account the heft of the material on the blocker, around my finger. So if anybody's listening and considering it, that's my piece of advice. Try it with your blocker on before you glue it on.
Well, that's such good advice, Joe. And even like some of the bulkier blockers with the big sidewalls now too, I found that the way I set it up is just with this orientation up against my finger. But with some of the other ones where you have like these big, heavy extra protection, people are actually flipping it this way. So it holds with the sort of leaner, smaller side facing against or facing towards the blade. Yeah. That way it gives just a little bit less slope and allows you to really load up a little quicker on the poke check and with a little less inhibition if you do have one of those chunkier blockers.
Yeah, and I remember when we skated last time together over at the Blake Arena, good goalies that we both got there about an hour before the skate, and we were talking, and I had shared that I had troubles keeping the first generation one on that didn't have the extra treads to make it adhere better, but you even recommended taking a little bit of sandpaper and sanding it down. And I learned from my wife many years ago, when girls get new high heels, they'll scuff them up a little bit so they have a little more grab. And it was kind of the same idea, sand that spot you're going to glue it to a little bit so it gets a little more grab. And sure enough, I did that and, haven't had a problem with it since. And that's with the first generation one. And
now it the treads really help with that a little bit, but it's still maybe it depends on the high heel, right? So the one that I have, if you have like a composite stick or something with like a rubber or silicone coating, I find that just like cleaning the surface of it and really getting that nice and clean is sufficient. But if you do have, like you said, one of the even an older stick or something with a dense paint on the cover, then it really does help to give it a full sand, because sometimes the glue, right, it can just stick to that paint.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm using a foam core Warrior. So that was the issue, is that almost gloss that they put on there, it was so smooth that the paint wasn't really sticking, or the glue wasn't sticking so well. But once I scuffed it up a little bit, it held so much better, which was nice. So you come up with this concept and you're coaching, so it's easy to give it to these kids and say, hey, try it out, let me know what you think. Once you had that proof of concept and knew what you had, how were you able to convince other goalies who you weren't coaching to try this product out?
One of the things is just sort of word of mouth advertising, right? Once it starts to really get these prototypes out, I got to a point where I had a really clean rubber prototype. And I said, this is something that could move. This is something we're past sort of a clay and rocks now. I think that this might be something to get out there. And I did a print of, I think it was 40 of them, and took them to a hockey camp with one of the Junior Ducks associates, and then with Goalie Nation out of Southern California. And I didn't have enough of them. Immediately got through all of them. And I think one of the big things is with, the highest level, oldest elite goalies, like anything, you've been doing something for years and years and years. So you might try anything, right? This shoe will make you jump higher. This golf club will make you drive further. This tennis racket will make you get all aces, whatever it is. People are hesitant because you've been doing something for so long, and it's not instant. It's like any new gear. You have to break in your skates. You have to, break in your leg pads. Even if you could drive further with a golf club, it'll take you a couple of swings, right? And so at the oldest level, I was finding that people looked at it, but it didn't immediately click. They said, all right, yes, but this isn't the same thing I've been doing for 20 years, and I'm kind of scared of it. And for people who gave it a full practice or a full, week, they eventually found it. But at the youngest level, it was love at first sight. Like the kids who put it in their hand, the kids who grabbed the stick immediately were like, this fixes all my problems. This helps me from dropping the stick. This, keeps it in my hand. This sort of immediately clicks. And especially when I was in California, a lot of the kids that I was coaching were at that, might squirt peewee level anyway. And so I was finding that was really the place that I could make the biggest impact. And while it would be great to, put it on every NHLer stick, goalies can be a little set in our ways. We can be a little superstitious.
Yep.
So it's just a much easier conversation. And I think that it was also something that was able to see a bigger difference, was able to make a bigger impact in the community as I was doing, some of the different camps and clinics and things like that. People would come in, and all of a sudden to have this piece that just immediately feels comfortable is almost like a coach in your ear, just being like, yep, you're holding the stick right. That's correct.
Yeah. And I can definitely see for the younger kid too, it just helps them keep that finger in the right spot, which I remember being a young goalie where it's like, should I have it here? Should I have it here?
Right.
It's almost a reminder of this is where the finger goes.
And it's nice too, especially I think it's really easy to sort of feel a little bit distant as a goalie, right? Everyone else gets to come back to the bench every couple, 30 seconds or 2 minutes or 3 minutes if you're really dogging it out there. But the goal is that you're just sitting, right? So you don't get that instant feedback. You don't get to hop over to the bench and have the coach say, hey, have you considered holding your stick with one finger over the paddle like I told you 100 times before? you just, you're out in your zone. And so I think to have that piece there is really comforting for a lot of kids too, to sort of have that constant muscle memory, to have that constant reminder that, whatever else is going on, you're doing this correctly and perfectly well.
Yeah, exactly. So I know the past few years you've had your booth at the Let's Play Hockey Expo, and it seems like every time I come by, people are at the booth. And what I love about it is it's a no frills booth. It's not like the Howie's booth where there's games and stuff to draw people in, but nobody's actually looking at the tape. And you are there, you have your sign, you have your stick, and you have the product out there. Yet people are still stopping going, what is this? And then once they start seeing it, you kind of see the spark in their eyes, like, all right, I get it. What kind of feedback, have you gotten at the Let's Play Hockey Expo?
It's been tremendous. And I mean, Brian and the crew over there just do a fantastic job. It's been one of the highlights of the year every time I've gotten to get over there. And obviously, just the environment with the tournament going on and everything is just a ton of energy. So it's definitely something that I'm always looking forward to. And I think that when I'm there too, because it is still fairly new, it's something that always gets a lot of hype, and people haven't really seen anything like this. There's nothing that exists like this on the market right now. And so all of a sudden, for even at the highest level, once people put it in the hand, they're like, oh, this is what I've been looking for years. And so I think it's tricky though to recreate that sort of experience in the digital space outside of the expos, the events, the camps.
Yeah. That's a great point. I guess I hadn't thought of, because it really is one of those products. Once you get it in your hand, you go, okay, yeah, I get it. And the price point is one where it's like, hey, here's a couple bucks. I'm going to try this thing out. And even if I don't like it, hey, it wasn't like trying out a new composite stick that you find out you don't like for $300.
For sure.
And at the same time, you get the nice neon green bracelet to go with it, to hold it on while the glue sets. One of the things I've been wondering is, clearly the kids get it and they seem to be adapting really well. What's the older crowd been like, the beer leaguers? Have they kind of come by going, I get it, but I'm stuck in my ways? Or have you seen a pretty good response from the beer league crowd going, yeah, I'm going to try this thing out?
Yeah, I've seen a couple people pick it up and definitely enjoyed, especially for those who are kind of on the newer end of their career, people who maybe picked up goalie a little later on in life, is just, again, that nice training device. One of the other things I get a lot at the higher levels is the paddle shock absorption, where I know we've all been there early mornings, especially when I was a kid. We would have like those 5:30, 6 a.m. practices. Like you're still kind of asleep, you haven't really woken up yet, and someone just rips a clapper off your paddle, and that shock just rips through your palm. You know what I mean? Those vibrations first thing in the morning too. And so it's like, it's not going to eat all of those, but the dense rubber polymer does absorb a lot of that shock. And you really do feel it a lot less. And that's something that I find, especially for myself, when I was playing at a high level, made a difference between, for example, a rock prototype and this 65 shore hardness urethane composite, where I'm like, this is much better. I think we should go with a rubber polymer instead of rocks from now on.
Instead of a piece of granite.
Yeah. Okay, note to self, we're making progress. Yes.
Have you had any, high-end elite goalies try it out and become adapters?
Definitely. Hunter Miska was using it and gave it a try and went through a summer. It had been with Travis, who's Trav for Oilers, if you're following him. And a couple people have used it on and off. I have it with a tender at St. Thomas now too, and kind of passing around through the leagues.
That's
One
awesome.
of the things that I'm seeing is that a big part of it is just making sure that it's installed correctly for your stick, for your grip, for your preferences. And so one of the things that's tricky is for me to pitch it as a new idea to someone who's, miles and miles away, and then try to help them set it up exactly right. So I feel like one of the things that I need to do is maybe create easier directions or installation or a way to help drive some of those conversations with the elite athletes a little.
Yeah, some YouTube videos with QR codes on your directions.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We have that the one YouTube video. I have an intern this year who's been doing a lot of our TikTok and Instagram stuff. So we're getting the content out there for sure.
Yep.
But there's only so far. Same. I was like, I'll hire an intern for this. That's perfect.
Yes. Yeah. The kids in their TikTok, I don't get it, but it seems to resonate with them.
Amen.
Yeah. So I asked this question wearing my new Goalie Gear Nerd t-shirt. If you're tinkering with the grip of your stick, that can't be the only thing you tinkered with your equipment. What other things did you try modifying or, changing up for different reasons?
My hair game. I feel like I always had like longer hair and would try like a bandana or a sweatband or, ponytail or this or that. And then I would try to get something set up in the helmet. That would be, I remember having, a couple shifts where whatever was like in front of my eyes and I'm just sort of sensing where the puck might be. So I feel like I was always adjusting helmet things and headband things, and then eventually trying to find a good way to sort of see and also be, able to grow some sweet hockey flow as one needs to from every time to time.
It's funny you say that, because one of my early episodes with Kelly Rudy, I asked him about his iconic blue bandana, and he started laughing, and he said kind of the same thing. His hair, he had that great hockey hair, and he was trying to find the right thing to keep it out of his face. And the one day he just took those old iconic blue undershirts that hockey players used to wear, just ripped the sleeve off and wrapped it around his head. And he's like, it was perfect.
Yeah, done.
And then he said later on, by the time he got to San Jose, he didn't quite need the bandana anymore and didn't like it, but it was part of his look that he had to keep it.
It was in his contract, and like,
Yeah.
and will continue to wear your
Yeah,
bandana.
it's like, will they know it's me in net if I don't have the bandana? So that's funny that of all the other things to tinker with was because of the hair game. I don't have to worry about that as much anymore. I don't have the hair I used to.
It happens to the best of us, for sure.
Yeah.
What did you tinker with as you were coming up through the ranks?
You know, that's I didn't tinker with much. It was really just the taping on my stick. I remember seeing a picture of Eddie Belfour's stick once, and he had the grip taped where the paddle meets the shaft. And so I tried that the one time, and I loved it. To me, at that age, that gave me more of that grip. And now that I have that with the Goalie Guru, it's, I have no excuses for not having control of my stick, in all honesty. There was probably that, the size of the knob on my stick. At one point, I was kind of like Braden Holtby, using a whole roll. Now it's not quite maybe a quarter of a roll, which was interesting. I switched to a butt ends grip when I bought my last stick, and I went with the goalie grip, and the knob for that goalie grip is the exact same size as I was taping. I was like, well, this saves some time.
That's just good user research right there. They got the exact knob right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other things. Gloves and pads, I always just went stock. My mask, I was always drawing what I wanted to have painted on there, but never got done. But again, that was just hey, this is how it came. This is how I'm wearing it.
Yeah.
I was one of those guys. It wasn't until I got to college and saw some of the modifications some of my teammates were doing. The one I still use today is the skate lace through the chest protector to hold it tight to, the belly, and then attach it to the breezers. That's probably been the biggest one. And that, I was playing college when they were still selling pads with toe buckles on them. So that was kind of at the advent of replacing the toe buckle with skate laces. In fact, the pads I still wear came with the toe buckle, and I got the screwdriver out, took the toe buckles off, and I replaced it with the skate lace that's still there today.
Nice.
So there was some of those early modifications that it's funny, kids they are like, what do you mean toe buckle? What did you do with that? There's not even a strap on my pad, and you had 3 going under your skate.
Yeah, that were all difficult to put on and assemble at the last minute.
Especially that toe buckle, because it's just this little piece of leather that you got to wrap all the way around that little hole on the front of the blade and try and get it. It was like,
for sure.
The skate lace was such an easier move, and I haven't tried the bungee straps yet, but eventually I will.
Yeah, it seems like a good solve.
Yeah.
One of the later things I tinkered with, actually, I had always sort of as a hockey bucket list side, I wanted to paint my own helmet. And it wasn't until after I graduated and finished my college career that I actually painted the helmet I used. And so if you look in like any of the Instagram posts, and it has that gold Potvin helmet, that was it was a navy blue helmet I played with that I sanded down and then cleaned and then put in that whole design hand drawn with like some airbrush and some stencils. And then I put on this high velocity clear coat on top of it. So I was really happy with it, and it came out really well, but you still see little areas where, I should have sanded it more or done this or that or taken it to a professional maybe.
But the difference is, if I look at that mask, and I remember seeing it when we skated together, if I look at it, I'm not going to see those imperfections. But because you did the mask, you're going to see them. It's just how all the home projects I've done in the house. It's like, yeah, I want to sell because every time I walk around, I see these imperfections, but the next homeowner is going to walk through and not even notice them, Right. So, yeah, it's funny you mentioned painting your own mask, because you mentioned Hunter Miska a little bit earlier. His dad's the famed goalie mask painter, and I just saw my Facebook memories as 10 years ago that I went and interviewed him for an In-Goal magazine.
That's awesome.
Article. That was really fun to go to his shop and kind of see the process and some of the masks, in process, having been a fan of his work for years. So you've got this awesome little hustle going with the Goalie Guru for sticks. What do you do away from hockey to kind of find that that inner peace? Like your logo, find your zen.
For sure. So it definitely really resonates with me. I think Justin from the Goalie Guild mentions in one of his books just the, martial arts as a center for peace of mind. And that's certainly something that I found after I left hockey to get into martial arts, and I've trained in, Kung Fu, Lao Kundo, Tai Chi, and just a couple different styles and systems. And I think that's sort of what brings together in a lot of ways the peace of mind, body, and soul for me, where I can continue to stay athletic and focused. And then certainly outside of that, just staying on task mentally and, keeping busy.
I might have to take up martial arts then, because I cannot stay focused. I have your typical goalie ADD brain.
For sure.
Yeah.
Sitting in the crease, there's just so many things going on. It's easy to get pretty distracted.
It's funny because I was talking to a bantam goalie for last week's episode, and he's talking about how he has ADD, and I said, I think most goalies do, but there's just something about, you put us in that crease, we can focus on that puck for 60 minutes, no problem. But as soon as that whistle blows, and there's that little bit of downtime, we're all over the place. How many videos do you see of goalies dancing to the music between plays? That could be any one of us. If YouTube or just social media was around, and during my high school playing days, there'd be video of me dancing to the organ music, especially during Christmas time when they played Christmas carols.
Your intro, it got me actually. I remember the Hartford Whalers coming out to Brass Bonanza, so that's a slice of my childhood for sure.
I fell in love with Brass Bonanza during the hockey lockout when they lost the whole season, because John Butchergrass would play the brass. He had a show on ESPN radio at the time, and he would end every show with Brass Bonanza until the league came back. And it was like, just something about hearing it every day on my drive home made me fall in love with it.
Yeah, it's so catchy.
Yeah, I wish Carolina would bring that back for their goal song.
They had a Whalers jersey for a couple games. It seemed like the Heritage against the Bruins, but no tunes though.
Yeah, I was, my folks live in North Carolina, so I was out there over spring break, and I remember they were wearing the reverse retro, which was the Whalers jersey, and I think they did play it, but only when they wear the Whalers jersey. So, well, if you've listened to any of the podcasts, I like to close it out with a list of rapid fire questions, and I try getting them sooner than later, because for a while I was talking for about 55 minutes and then getting to them and finding out that they took longer than 5 minutes to get through. So the first question is, what's the craziest coaching moment from your days in hockey? I used to say from your playing days, but I mean, now, guys like yourself and myself, we've been coaching as well, and we've had our own moments.
Yeah, as a player or as a coach.
Yeah, it could be either one.
Definitely one of the things I'll always remember is as a player, we had to run this event. It was the 21:30, and we had 21 minutes and 30 seconds to run 3.3 miles. It was part of like what we had to do as training, and we had to run it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday until we completed it, until we did it in time. And then if you didn't, you got Thursday off. And then we had games Friday and Saturday. You took Sunday off, and then you had to start it again and do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday until you did it.
Was this in college?
This was in college. And there were some, kids who were just like, the bigger power guys on the team who like, they just weren't going to do it. And so we had the guys who were struggling through. And I remember it was just like this devastating thing that everyone had to go through. And when we came back from Thanksgiving break, our coach still made us restart it. So the guys who had finished it, who had checked it off, reset and had to do it again. And I remember thinking that Monday, I was like, I'm not going to run this a second time. It was in Wisconsin, so there was snow and ice on the ground.
Yeah.
Everyone's coming back rusty from Thanksgiving break. And I said, I'm not running this a second time, no matter what. And usually I remember like getting to the end of a race or an obstacle. I remember thinking, you know what I mean? You always have that 10% left. And I just at the end, when it was time to sprint, I was like, I have absolutely nothing left. I am going to pass out. I feel absolutely terrible. And I remember just my dad, when he was coaching when I was little, saying, always give 110%, you know what I mean? As everyone does. And for no logical reason, I was like, wait a second, I have this 10 imaginary percent left. And so whatever it was, found that extra bonus 10 and made it through and just like passed in the snow, laid down for a good minute or so until I caught up. And the next day there was one more run. And then by Wednesday, the coach said, this is unsafe. No one should have to run this in these conditions. And it was just me and I think 4 or 5 other people who made it after Thanksgiving. But I was happy that I stomped through it and really kind of, dug into something that was way, way down. At the same time, I really also think that was a terrible coaching move to have us do that again. And I think that as much as we have great leaders, we also learn a lot from our really terrible ones. And that was just one of the, I think, moments that I really remember that coach doing a pretty bad job.
Well, I remember at that time too, for whatever reason, this idea that running a mile in under 6 minutes was big in the hockey world for a long time. I've heard a bunch of guys talk, even at the NHL level, talk about it. I think Brett Hall was on the Cam and Strickland podcast talking about their fitness testing and the way he was like, no, I'm a hockey player, not a runner. But we had that same thing in college where we had to run that mile in under 6 minutes every year, October 1st. To this day, I still have a little PTSD on October 1st. That freshman year, I ran it and I just went all out. And we ran it on the indoor track, which was nice because we didn't have to worry about weather, but still, the indoor track versus outdoor is like 8 times around. So it's just like you're in your head, like, am I in the 6th lap? Am I in the 7th lap? I don't know.
Yeah.
They had people counting for us, which was nice, but I'm going all out. I finished it in like 5:15 my freshman year and collapsed at the finish line. I'm like, I had teammates that year, good hockey players, but you could not play a game until you ran your 6-minute mile. The one goalie, it was almost halfway through the year that he couldn't, that he finally got it. And I was talking to him recently and he's like, yeah, did you realize we had to try that every single day before dryland practice until we got it? I was like, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's just brutally disheartening.
Yeah. And, like one of the kids was coming back from injury. So, he could do it we had an equivalent on the bike if he had like a knee injury or something, but still the guys that did it both ways over the course of the year, they're like, trust me, if you're hurt, try running it because the bike is a lot harder. But I learned after freshman year that they try putting somebody who's ran track in each group so they can kind of use them to
nice
pace
a benchmark,
kind of pace you. So I knew that, and I was in the same because it went alphabetically. I was in the group with a teammate by the name of Scott Becker, who's no longer with us, and he paced it out at 5:59 every year after that. So the first year I did at 5:59. Next 3 years, 5:59. I had 1 second to spare. And I'm coming around the corner. I hear the coaches calling out the time. Like, I'm good. I'm right next to Scotty. I'm good.
It's good teammates right there, whether they're on the hockey team or track or.
Yeah, it was funny that, after the third year, the goalie coach, he's like, you found, we said you got to do it in this. You came in under, but you did it like that much every time. He's like, I get what you're doing there.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you guys just said I had to finish in under 6 minutes. You didn't say that, whoever finishes best amongst the goalie gets the most playing time. It's like, no,
sure,
I'm doing what I have to, and I'm going to focus on stopping pucks from there on out. Because that's what I'm here to do. So the next question, I think I know the answer based on how you painted your mask, but what's your favorite all-time goalie mask?
Yeah, Popvin's got to be right up there. I feel like he really just set a culture, really. Like, it's just this iconic mask that whether you grew up in that era or not, even like I've seen kids today who have a mask like that, and it's just sort of something that really sets a tone, and I think brings back such a powerful image. And seeing him play, you saw, like, those co-hosts that he would have too, like, just his style was so good. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember if I read it or heard it, but it's believed that that's the most replicated mask design.
That could be.
Yeah, which, being a Blackhawks fan growing up, I hated Potvin and that mask because they were in the same division and they were Blackhawk killers at the time. But as I've grown older and wiser, I now really appreciate him and his mask.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think it's easy to have those rivals. For some reason, I always hated Ron Hextall. Yeah. I think you would just see him like do dirty slashes and other things like that. And you're like, man, that's making it harder for everyone everywhere. But
yeah, I gained a little more respect for Potvin too, reading the first issue of Vintage Tendy magazine, because half of the magazine is dedicated to him and his backstory and everything. Is like, all right, I like him even a little bit more. Yeah. So what's your favorite rink that you've played at?
Ooh, that's a tough question. It's almost like what's the best ice cream place, right? Where you're not really eating that ice cream. You're sort of eating the memory of it, right?
Yes.
So I feel like I've played at, Lake Placid and been in Olympic stadiums, but for me, a favorite might be out in Victoria, around British Columbia, way out there, sort of in at that hockey camp mentality where you're there with like all of your friends you made over the summer and you're skating your heart out, but then you still have like the fun tournament moments and stuff. And so I still can sort of picture that rink as one that stands out as an emotional favorite.
Yeah, it's funny you put it that way, because when I think of, my favorite rinks, it's got to be the rink I, basically started skating at and played my high school hockey at, and then my college rink for the reasons mentioned. And it has nothing to do with the ice. It's more the locker room and the antics that happened there. And, what kind of food and beverages the concession stand had. And, you can almost go close your eyes and smell that arena for those reasons.
I think the parks tick a lot of those boxes too. I live close enough to, Bryant Square, and they put out the boards and the nets and everything and the lights, and just like, skating around and playing a quick game of pickup in the park is really the heart and soul of a lot of hockey players. And so it's awesome to see, just Minneapolis and the Twin Cities put up that stuff every year and maintain it throughout the year too.
Yeah. Well, and I love, some of the communities too. Like, my kids are in the Matamidi School District, and Matamidi keeps up their 2 outdoor rinks. They just leave the boards and everything up year round, and they just mow down the grass before the snow flies, and then they flood it, and they have the warming house. And it's fun because there's a baseball field right there. So when we're there, baseball season, you look over and you see the boards, and as I'm sitting there in the summer watching practice, I'm pining to be on the ice over there.
For sure.
Yeah. So what is your favorite goalie stick that you've used?
This one I'm really enjoying, this Bauer Supreme. I've used Warriors in the past, but I feel like I haven't fallen in love with one stick or another yet. Maybe it'll come down to if a manufacturer scoops up a licensure deal with me or something, if anyone's out there.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. So the next question, what is your favorite youth hockey memory? And it kind of builds off of, your feelings about your favorite rink. What's your favorite youth hockey memory?
Definitely some probably tournament wins, or even maybe a youth hockey memory too might even be driving a Zamboni as a coach. It's sort of looking at youth hockey from the other direction though, where when I was a kid, I always loved the Zamboni. And so one of the things I got to do at a role when I was out in DC is could drive the Zamboni when I wasn't on. So got sort of trained on how to do that. And every Saturday before we would start like the learn to play goalie, I would do the first lap before I drop the blade and start the auger and just do like a round of high fives with all the kids who are about to come out there. It was like a preemptive victory lap. And then I couldn't mess up cutting it because, you already take that victory lap. You got to do it proper, which is sometimes easier said than done with some of those big Zamboni or the Olympia machines. But it's really cool in a way. It almost like checked like a childhood hockey dream of mine to grow up and drive a Zamboni for a little bit, but it was a lot of fun.
How satisfying when you get done cutting ice and you just, before you close those Zamboni doors, after you've shoveled the slush off, you almost have to stand back for a second and look at it and admire your work.
Like a fresh painting type of thing. You're like, man, I made that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. When I was in college, I drove the Zamboni between our practices and the women's team getting on. So when, wind sprint started at the end of practice, the coach, kind of gave me the heave ho so that I could go. I had to take my pads off with all 37 leather buckles in my skates, and then I'm out there in my breezers and my chest protector driving the Zamboni. And there was some pressure there when you have your teammates and then the women's team watching you.
Yeah.
You leave that little strip of snow or a little too much water behind the nets, they're gonna let you know.
I'm sure the chirps must have been relentless.
Yeah, it was something else to say the least, but I loved driving the Zamboni. It was a pretty darn good college job for me. So you talk about chirps. That's the next question. What's the best chirp you've heard on the ice, off the ice, directed at you, not directed at you, from you?
Yeah, the best one came, I got to play some pond hockey New Year's Day, which was so much fun just to get out and had a decent group out there. And I feel like this was a fantastic chirp. Just someone was skating down and, they tried to do a little deke. And I think the professional term is a whoops-a-dangle. And so some guy yelled and he's like, "Oh, for cute." Like, oh man, you never think of that as a Minnesota chirp, but it landed so hard and just roasted him. It was good.
That's the perfect one right there. I like that. So what's your worst post-game beer?
Man, it's got to be something from a local. I feel like there's a point where you want to try something a little classier, right? You go with like a darker IPA. Yeah. And I feel like I've had Fair State before, and all of a sudden I want to like it, and I just can't. You need something much, much lighter at that point.
Yeah, it's funny. After hockey, it's almost like the cheaper light beers are the perfect post-game beer.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a beer snob. I like my stouts and porters and a good double IPA and all that. But after a game, a Coors Light or a Mick Golden Light, that's going to quench me perfect.
I've seen Labatt is good in there too. I like just a good can of Labatt after a game.
Yeah, as a beer snob and a home brewer, I think some of it is, we say those cheap beers are kind of like water, and I think that's why they're good after a game. It's refreshing.
Sure.
So when you tape your stick, do you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
I go heel to toe. Okay. I had to look at it for a second. I was like, is that? Yeah, heel to toe.
Yeah, there's a few goalies out there that are, one recent goalie termed it psychopaths and go toe to heel, but we won't hold it against them. I ask that question because when they do go toe to heel, I want to know why.
Where do you learn that?
Yeah. Connor Beaupre was the only one that really had a good thought out answers because he's phenomenal at playing the puck. And to him, the puck just comes off the tape better. He feels like if he goes heel to toe, it slows the puck down, throws him off. It's like, all right, I'm going to trust you because I've never had that kind of skill to worry about my tape impacting my puck play.
That's the ultimate reason. It's like, if you don't do this, you're not good enough to need it type of thing. And you're like, well, exactly. Can I dispute that? I don't know.
Exactly. What's your favorite number to wear and why?
So I started as defense, and I think I wanted to be 4 like Bobby Orr. And then one year we didn't have 4. And so I went with 2, where it's like, all right, it was half Bobby Orr. And then even when I switched to goalie, I really kept 2. And so in the teams where I was able to, they were like, yeah, that's not a goalie number, but you know, you do you, that's fine. So I was really happy rocking that for many, many years. And one of the big things I think too is it's you know, nice to kind of jump outside the box a little bit. It's easy to be like, oh, you know, goalies this, that, or the other, but so it's good to just have an unconventional number throughout you know, good couple of years playing.
Yeah, you're starting to see more goalies with unconventional numbers. And previous goalie I had on, he's playing at the high school level. He wears number 3 because that's just kind of like the family number. And it's like, all right, definitely not a goalie number, and but you own it, you know.
And I think that's cool to expand things a little bit more, to see, you know, other numbers, other voices, other, you know, different experiences, and just to kind of open things up a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when Dominik Hasek was wearing 39 and people were like, that's not a goalie number. Although we still had Ron Hextall wearing 27. Like, that was okay. But 39 was, you know.
That's where the line is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so but Hextall, again, it fit him because he was a goalie that liked to play the puck, scored goals. So it's like, yeah, you should have a goal scorer's number.
And you know, he taped toe to heel too. He was just a madman.
I'm surprised he even taped his stick. You know, if anything, he was probably putting rocks into his tape for when he slashed people with it.
Just such a lunatic.
Yeah, but the more I hear about him, like, he was a lunatic on the ice, but completely different off the ice. And, you know, his teammates loved him, and they loved him for a reason, you know. So yeah, he's an interesting fellow, that's for sure.
And so many different things too come into, you know, the personality and how you play and what your team needs versus, like, you know, what you need outside or what your family needs. It's I think going back to your comment too, looking for like that well-rounded balance of mind, body, and soul. It's sort of there's on the ice, there's off the ice, and then there's sort of the physical and mental aspects to balance as well.
Yeah, you know, you talk about that, and I think of a guy like John Scott. You know, heck of a hockey enforcer, but off the ice, he's a devout Catholic, father of 6 girls, you know, probably a pacifist nonetheless, but on the ice, like, guys didn't want to go up against him. They didn't want to fight him because they knew he would, you know, do a number on him. He found that balance.
Or maybe just get it all out of the way off the ice, and then you're like, all right, I have no anger left. It's all been used up.
Yep, gets into a fight, knows he's got to go to mass on Sunday and, you know, repent for his sin of beating the snot out of somebody.
It's good planning. It's like, all right, I got my schedule set up. I'm all set.
Exactly. So last question, what advice do you have for young goaltenders other than to buy a Goalie Guru?
Of course. Yeah, I think just to keep doing you is definitely one of the things we're talking about with the customizations and, you know, the changes and the numbers, whether you see something that someone else is doing and you want to make your own tweak on it, or you see something that no one's doing and you want to be a creative individual and find your own way to do it. I think that, you know, no one's going to be able to have that style the same way you do, and definitely just keep working toward that, being the you that you can be, and find your own style rather than, you know, having it dictated to you. I think will go far.
I like that. And I think that's important in this day and age of goaltending, where it feels like you can go to a goalie clinic and every goalie looks the same, their stance, their movement, and everything else. And it's okay to be the non-conventional goalie. You know,
sure,
if that's what works for you, do it. Because we see a lot of non-conventional goalies in the NHL, a guy like Fleury or Khudobin, you know, they're doing what works for them, and they don't care what other people think.
And especially with like different, you know, styles and body types and levels of athleticism, right? The same way you wouldn't have Hasek teaching, you know, Van Beesbrook or Quick or anything like that. Like, you got just completely different sizes and dimensions, and it's sort of good to take a little advice from everywhere, a little piece of, you know, what Coach A, Coach B, and Coach C thinks, and then form it in with, you know, an infusion of your own style and make it work for you.
Absolutely. So where can folks find you online if they want to learn more about the Goalie Guru?
It's getgoalieguru.com, and we got the original and the V2 Pro up there, and really shifting into the V2 this year. and obviously on, Instagram and now on TikTok as well.
Are you on TikTok doing any of the fun dances?
Not yet. Maybe that's coming up. Yeah. Stay tuned, but
Yeah.
don't quote me on that.
Well, once you reach so many sales, you'll do a TikTok dance.
There we go. Yeah, let's get 100 out this weekend.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that should be the goal. If you can get 100 sales this weekend, you'll do a TikTok dance.
Should we do a discount for you or something, Joe? Put together like a...
Hey, it's up to you. I'm down with that.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll follow up. I'll send something over your way, and we'll put together a little discount to scoop up some goalie gurus for us here.
Yeah, and maybe if we get enough of them, we'll get Corey to do some fun dances.
Whatever's hot on TikTok.
Yeah, I'll be sure to put it in the show notes after we figure out what that is, and hopefully listeners jump at it. It's worth it. Like I said, I've used it for a while, and I almost can't think of playing without it now. So there's that too. So
it's been really cool to see it take off. Also, it's just sort of one of those things you dream about and craft over time, and to see how far it's gone from, this rock I had on a stick to this, fully patented in US and Canada company that I'm able to sort of help make an impact for kids in the community that is, so important to me. I think it's been really cool. And in a lot of ways, it's sort of a life dream to see this really continue to make an impact.
That's awesome. And, I think it plays into your advice too, of, you do you and go your route. 'Cause I'm sure along the way, some people, even mom and dad were probably like, what are you doing? You're trying to sell this little piece of rubber to glue onto a stick. And you're like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm sticking to my guns, and look at where it's gotten you.
Yeah, rock on.
That's almost the perfect ending, since it all started with a rock. Well, Corey, I appreciate you taking time today. Always fun to talk to you. Hopefully we can get on the ice again here together at some point. And we'll keep in touch.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me, Joe. Take care.
It's always fun talking with Corey, whether it be skating at the rink with him, seeing him at the Let's Play Hockey Expo, or just talking over Zoom. If you want to give a Goalie Guru a shot on your stick, use promo code TendyTalk20 at checkout for 20% off. That's all one word. Listen, these things aren't expensive to begin with, but if you've been thinking about a trigger grip like I was, or are simply intrigued by the concept, now is the time to go to getgoalieguru.com and try it out. Remember, Tendy Talk 20 at checkout will get you 20% off. You can follow Goalie Guru on Instagram and Facebook at GetGoalieGuru, all one word. They're also on TikTok too. Search for them and they'll show up. I don't know. I'm not a TikTok person, so I don't know how all that works out. But maybe we'll see Corey dancing at some point. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube simply by searching for Wash Up Goalie. Visit washupgoalie.com for some great hockey-related content, my beer league hockey video highlights when I'm able to find a skate during this pandemic, and of course, all podcast episodes. If you want some Washed Up Goalie or Tendy Talk apparel, be sure to visit my Threadless shop by clicking the merchandise link on my website. I recently revamped the shop, adding some items as well as some goalie silhouetted inspired pieces. I even just got a notebook with the Tendy Talk logo on it for work. If you like this podcast, go listen to the BLPA Big Show. It's the OG BLPA Podcast Network show. The BLPA Big Show is a couple of beer leaguers chatting about their beer league hockey, draft experience shenanigans, and exploits from around the game. The show is hosted by Nick Jones and Trish Dangle, a former Tendy Talk guest, with other co-hosts filling in occasionally. With the BLPA in the middle of draft experience season, episodes are bound to have stories from the latest tournaments and information about upcoming ones. And if you hear any squeaking behind me, that's my little puppy telling me she wants to play. I need to thank the band, or she is barking. I need to thank the band The Zambonis for allowing me to use their music on my podcast. You can download their music on iTunes or listen wherever you stream music from. I'm working on lining up other goalies to talk to. If you are a goalie or have connections to a goalie who I should talk to, shoot me an email at washedupgoalie39@gmail.com or send me a DM on social media. Let's not forget, if you are a brand who wants to sponsor the show, be sure to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk. And finally, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment on the podcast platform you're listening on. It's a quick action on your part that helps others find Tendy Talk. Until next time, keep your stick on the ice and your body square to the puck.
Hockey Week!